I was looking at the director Chris LaMartina on Letterboxd. I thought that this was his first movie, but it turns out he's been in the business since 2005,
It
and
sounds like he knows what he's doing as far as
it's
budgets go.
13 director credits. He made Call Girl of Cthulhu, which I haven't seen, but it's always been on my to watch list.
And so when did this one come out? The one that we're discussing?
2013.
Okay. Because it really did feel like it came out in like the early 90s or something like that, like mid 90s. I don't know why. It just
Yeah.
felt old
Well,
school.
I mean, it's set in
Definitely
1987.
intentional. Yeah.
87, gotcha. That makes sense. Okay, late 80s, early 90s, something like that.
And
Gotcha.
when the trailer came out, it was marketed as like this lost media kind of thing, like an infamous broadcast that has never been released. But no,
Okay.
it's just
Yeah,
Oh,
that makes sense. That
like the
makes
dude was
sense.
like sneaking videos into VHS stores and stuff. Like that's cute.
yeah.
By God, someone will find this footage.
I mean, I bought it too. Like I was like, oh, that's crazy. I've never heard of this before. But I mean, once I saw the movie, I'm like, okay, this is all a joke. But
All right.
Yeah, no, it's like the quality of the video just definitely made it feel like it was authentic though, like old school. It really had that feel. And
yeah,
yeah. And it was just kind of like it would go back and forth between feeling like believable and then completely like a joke and unbelievable. But like the elements of like the advertisements and like the election stuff and all that, it was just kind of it was like, oh, I'd have to like kind of remind myself that it is a movie. It was weird.
God
It was
dang. It was kind of too real. Like in the
yeah,
sense that I was just kept tuning out during the advertisements. Just like,
yeah, during the
uh,
advertisements, yeah.
I don't know how seriously the director was trying to make the movie scary. Like it's not really very scary, but I feel like that the commercials lend themselves to a false sense of security. You know,
hey, to
they
an extent.
Mhm.
they break up the tension of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, but almost
No,
too
they all
much
get
in some
yeah.
cases.
yeah.
Well, kind of, yeah. Because it's like during the commercial breaks, it's like it's almost this nostalgic feeling where it's like I don't know, it's like this comforting feeling for me. I don't know, like I just feel like I'm a kid, like at home with the TV playing in the background, and then all of a sudden it's like back to this like fucked up story. But it was
Um,
still a joke. I mean, most of it was still had humor scattered throughout it.
Yeah, I feel
Like
like most of the humor is in the commercials. But yeah, the thing is, Chris LaMartina, since 2011, has been working in marketing and advertising as a creative director.
Yeah, that tracks. It was all found, but like this was basically how they made Adult Swim. Like they just took a bunch of stuff and they just glued it together and redubbed over it. It sounds like.
yeah, like when I my best way of like describing it is like Blair Witch Project meets Adult Swim, like check it out, Steve Bull type of thing. I don't know, like
We were talking about the VHS look of it. They recorded it on VHS, I think, and then they like made copies of it again and again to authentically degrade the footage to make it look the way it does. So like
hmm
the version
hmm
that we saw was like a fourth or fifth generation copy of the tape.
okay, okay.
It makes a lot of sense though.
Yeah, no, but there was some funny parts. Like, I mean, I thought there was like when Dracula like doesn't know like someone died in the house or whatever, and just like I don't know,
Yeah.
the soul can actually swell. Like, I'm just oh the soul can swell. It could actually swell. Huh? It's like I don't know.
It's definitely more of a comedy. And I was thinking the other night, like, this isn't really a great horror movie, but it is a perfect nostalgia
hmm
movie.
hmm hmm
Flash, you were saying that half of the movie is ads. There are 14 commercial breaks throughout the movie for a total of 23 minutes. That's just under a third of the movie.
It felt like
Wow.
so much more. Like, but at the same time, I mean, that's how TV felt back then. So, I mean, it's not incorrect. It's just, damn, I've
hmm
been doing streaming too long, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of the ads repeated too. It was like you'd
They
see the same
did,
ads too.
which is
They might
why I
be
was sitting there
slightly
was
different.
like I felt myself just like, all right, well, I guess we'll wait for the news segment to come back. Clearly, this was just ripped off television. And
Um,
eventually I started like trying to wait for stuff to actually happen in the ads, but I don't think anything ever did it?
Not really. I mean, there wasn't any lore that was really relevant to the story. There was a lot of world building with stuff like the political
Yeah, like the
campaigns and
election.
stuff
And
like
that was
that.
all in, yeah, the dentistry thing. But none of it
Yeah,
really
yeah.
seemed to connect to the main story.
Which
I
makes
don't know. I guess I
sense.
was trying to figure out what the point of them was, other than just to be there.
Well, it's for the authentic feel of watching TV in the 80s, you know?
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah,
true.
yeah.
And like I said earlier, it's also, I feel like it is part of breaking up the tension. Like, specifically, there's one shot where they, like, something really horrible happens and then they just quickly cut to commercials and you're kind of in this, like, state of shock. The movie starts on ads and they fast forward through them, but I actually went frame by frame and I uncovered these hidden ads. There was a safe sex PSA, safe sex, now
Okay.
that's sexy. The by the organization AIDS Fades. Then we had a makeup commercial for Mouth by Asphyxia, a lipstick that transforms women into cooler versions of themselves. And then we get into the intro of the actual show, or the actual news broadcast. We meet Gavin Gordon and oh, I can't remember the other one's name. I should have wrote it down. But Gavin Gordon gets his last name from director Stuart Gordon of Reanimator and From Beyond. But they just go over what they're going to be talking about that night, and then we cut into our second ad break, technically. And during this break, there's a Halloween makeup kit by French Johnson. I wanted to make a joke about how that was my name in high school, but I've done that joke too many times. But then we come back into the news broadcasting. We have the Halloween safety tips. Trick-or-treaters must be accompanied by a trusted adult, not the guy that drives the ice cream truck. I thought that was an interesting joke. It might be a reference to the movie The Ice Cream Man, which I'm a big fan of. It's pretty broadly just a
There was
joke
at
about
least
stranger
one
danger.
serial killer that did that.
Really?
But also it's just not John Wayne Gacy. He was the clown. No, not the clown guy. But a different one. That Give me a minute. I'll get back to you on that. But it's also just kind of a thing in pop culture at this point. That the ice cream guy's sus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
right, right.
I will say, like, of that opening sequence, they had their small town news anchor pun game on point. Like that was
Yeah,
striking. I
absolutely.
didn't note any specific ones, but it was cringy.
Yeah. I do remember he said something like, I hope your cats aren't scaredy cats. That was a good one.
Right,
Right?
right. Yeah.
But yeah, I love how goofy the anchors are in the beginning because it makes the ending hit so much harder when they come back and they're completely somber.
Oh,
That's the thing,
is it?
yeah. The ending was it really because the whole movie was like really lighthearted for the most part. And then the ending, like I felt like that was almost like how Blair Witch Project like should have ended. Like actually showing people, like with their tongues cut out. I'm guessing that's what it looked like to
Yeah.
me. Like, yeah. So
Indeed.
okay. Indeed.
So then after the safety tips, we had the segment about tooth decay. Halloween is a dentist's worst nightmare.
Which I thought was funny because isn't it the opposite? I mean, shouldn't dentists love Halloween? Isn't I mean,
That's why
I
many people
dentists
are
mean,
don't
are
mad.
want
they in it?
to.
Are they in it for the cash or the love of the game? I mean, that's
Yeah,
really the
I know.
question.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't money like I mean, come on, isn't that really the end goal for most people, including dentists? Like, give me some teeth to fill, some cavities to fill. But I thought it was hilarious because that dentist was like, he was like the opposite. He was like, Halloween's horrible. Like, it's like, yeah.
So
And
there
then,
was a dude named the Iceman who was a mob killer who worked out of an ice cream truck, but he did all his activity was between 1980 and 1984, so it is timely.
Huh.
That's just the first thing that Google came up with. There are more.
Okay, I
Oh,
knew
no,
about
that
Richard
makes sense.
Kuklinski. I did
Yeah,
not know
that's the
he
guy I was
worked out
talking
of an
about.
ice cream truck.
Uh, Nicknamed Mr. Softy.
um,
But he only killed dudes, no kids.
yeah.
You know, I guess that's okay.
I don't imagine there's a lot of kids that are in trouble with the mob. Although he was a hothead anyway, he just killed people because he was mad.
Essentially, I don't know. It's a little schizophrenic, it seems like. A friendly reminder that not all ice cream truck drivers are serial killers. A PSA from Carl, the windowless fan.
But then we shift tones a little bit as we discuss the G.I. Joe murder. A young Asian boy was dressed as a soldier and knocked on the door of a veteran who then had a Nam flashback and shot him to death. He was a big fan of G.I. Joe, according to his mother. It's such a darkly humorous story, but I don't know, it made me laugh for sure, but it's also like, man, it makes you think about how fucked up it is that we like glorify the military and market it to kids and shit like that, GI Joe and whatnot.
Hmm.
That
Yeah, he had
that
like
was just
flashbacks
striking.
and killed the kid.
That honestly was among the darkest points of the film, frankly. Like up
It
to
was.
him
And that was
killing
like
his
at the
dad.
beginning too.
It's like
Yeah.
way to make it real, dude.
I mean, it's like stuff like that can happen, and like that's the thing throughout the
Mhm.
movie. It's like, well, I mean, all of this could happen. I mean, there's a guy could kill his parents in his house, and I mean, even that story of the Vietnam veteran killing the kid, like, yeah, because he was like Vietnamese in military uniform. I
Right.
mean, it's like that's really dark humor. It's fucked up. But I mean, it's like at first I was like, that's fucked up, and then when he mentioned it was like the in the uniform and like thought he was a Vietnamese soldier, it's kind of funny
Mhm.
in a way, but
Yeah.
I kind of felt wrong for laughing. But oh well.
But also that shit did happen. Like
Did it really?
we're
I mean, is
very
that's the thing? It's like it could happen.
I mean, that was definitely the era where kids were still just pulling shit out of their dad's closet to wear for Halloween. And also wildly unchecked mental health for vets, you know?
Yeah. They didn't really know what
I
PTSD
mean, I
was.
guess
In fact, in the movie, they called it shell shock. They didn't say PTSD. I don't know if that term was around yet.
yeah,
Right? Oh,
shell
shell
shock's as
shock.
old as
Yeah.
World War II.
Yeah, no, it's evolved over the years. I think George Carlin even like did a skit where he talked about that. Shell shock and it's post traumatic. Now it's PTSD and it's I can't remember. It's evolved over the years, like terminology for that.
So after the story about the G.I. Joe murder, there is a break. We get the first political attack ad against Republican State Senator Robert Dandridge, who of course gets his last name from Jerry Dandridge from Fright Night.
Right.
Okay.
His
A lot of
opponent is
references.
Governor Mike Barlow, although I'm not familiar with those names. I don't know if that's a reference to anything.
It just sounds like a politician.
Yeah, there's a lot of names in here that like I wasn't sure if there was a reference. I didn't really note every single name down, but I wrote down the ones that I thought were interesting. Then we get an ad for the Carvel Lantern pumpkin carving kit. Adult supervision advised, not required. Advised. I don't know if it's
Right.
supposed to be like a plastic cutter or something. It says there's no sharp edges for kids to cut themselves on, but
That's kind of the point where I was all like, are these just authenticity or is there some sort of hidden gag here? Because I swear this was just a commercial from when I was a kid. Like, I'm pretty sure I even had that stupid thing. And
yeah,
yeah, it was essentially just like a, serrated plastic knife, no metal, but it cut the gourd.
yeah. A lot of it is just authenticity. I did look, like I said, I was doing frame by frames, and like every time there was a big like VHS distortion, I would go frame by frame and see if there was anything hidden. But unfortunately, no. This is not Ghostwatch.
Yeah. Like there's a part of me that I kind of wished I saw this one first
Yeah.
because it got me all hyped for the other stuff, and I'm just like, it's not here. I'm looking
um,
for things that aren't.
I'm not sure if I have all of the advertisements within the correct ad breaks in my notes, But I believe next we get an ad for Dr. Stanley Allen, the dentist from the news segment. His
Yeah,
slogan is "I'm going to make you smile," which I think is a little bit ominous. It's very set in stone.
I mean that man dedicated to craft.
Yeah. So his name, Stanley, of course, could be Stanley Kubrick or the Stanley Hotel from The Shining.
Hmm.
And then his last name is Allen, spelled with an E, which always makes me think of Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, I'm sure that's intentional.
And then we get an ad for Tokens Video Arcade and Pizzeria. Now this one I really needed to go frame by frame because all the names of the fucking games are flashing back and forth. So the games listed are Blorgon, Space Paranoids, George Plimpton's Video Falconry, Slap Puck,
Okay.
Monster Castle, and Racer Highway. They also claim to have the latest toppings, being pepperoni, sausage, pineapple, beef, and veggie. Not a whole lot of innovation going on in the pizza game.
Yeah, that's pretty classical though.
Yeah, but he says they're the latest toppings, you know? There haven't
Well,
been
I
any more
mean,
recent developments.
this is supposed to be like the Midwest, right? I mean, they just got pizza for all intents and purposes. So, yeah, I'm thinking so.
I don't think it ever says what state it's set in, but I do know the director is from Maryland.
Fair enough. But I mean, I guess my point is like pizza only made it out of the big cities in like the 70s.
Huh.
I had no idea. Wow. Hmm.
So, I mean,
Uh,
just the fact that they're veggie, I mean, it could be anything.
that is very progressive. So then when we come back from the ads, we have a news segment about the season of attack ads. Of course, being in October, you're close to November when the elections would be happening.
Uh-huh.
So most of the segment is fast forwarded through, but we do get Senator Dandridge's response to Mike Barlow saying that he wants to talk about insignificant stuff and not the real issues that matter. But if we want to talk about little things like his infidelity, I'd be more than happy to. Kind of a backhanded
Classic Barb.
response.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like for the election ads, it seemed like just so authentic to me. I was almost tempted to like Google the name Barlow, like that guy, like the Barlow dude, and like see if he's real. Like, but probably not.
Yeah, I wasn't like they went to great lengths to make up a whole lot of new fake stuff for this movie. Like I listed down all the fake TV shows and fake movies, and there was one that they mentioned that I'm like, is that one real? I haven't looked it up yet.
Barlow.
Mhm.
It's the vampire in Salem's Lot.
Ah, okay. See, I haven't seen Salem's Lot. I'm glad I have you on this recording.
I know. You got to read Salem's Lot and or watch it.
Yeah.
It is definitely among King's best. The connection there is the Salem's Lot revolves around a vampire, right, moving into town. And there's this, titular house that's infested with the evil, right?
Huh.
Similar to our newscast. And then you also mentioned the other character was based on the hotel name, yeah? Similar situation.
Oh, Dr. Stanley Allen, the dentist.
Yeah, yeah. The Stanley
Uh,
Hotel. Well,
okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. It's a house or a building that's full of evil spirits. Uh,
yeah, it's definitely on theme. I mean, I don't know if I'm just reaching, but it's there to reach at.
yeah, exactly. Oh, Jerry Dandridge, also a vampire from Fright Night. So two vampires, two
I guess that's
blood-sucking
also,
politicians.
yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And would you consider Fright Night a haunted house, like a spooky, a House of Evil movie?
I guess
Because
so.
it kind of started with the kids looking at his neighbors all askance.
Yeah. So then we get the first teaser during the newscast talking about what's going to happen during the special. One of the I can't remember the second newscaster's name, but the lady anchor says, "So are you guys going to contact Elvis?" and I never noticed this until like the last couple times I watched it. One of the background extras is like kind of dressed like Elvis, and he raises his arm up when they ask if about that.
I'm
He
sure he's
doesn't.
exactly dressed like Elvis because of Halloween.
Yeah, well, he's got the pompadour and he's got like the goofy like black cape costume thing, but he's got a goatee, so he looks more like Sleazy P Martini. So then they go back to the newscast, and the next segment is about how not everyone is pleased with tonight's special presentation. Some viewers are downright disturbed, which I thought was great foreshadowing. Some of the viewers really are disturbed. Specifically, Angela Harris, the founder of Harvest, which I do not know what Harvest stands for. They never tell us, and it drives me crazy because I want to
It's an
know.
acronym.
Yeah, it's got even
This
got periods
was
in it.
okay, so it's got to be some religious thing, right? So
I mean,
Halloween, Antichrist.
it's
I don't know.
usually what like churches like, and they usually do have like a thing that counters Halloween every year. If it most churches
Like,
do, and they usually call that harvest, and they
Ah,
just get around and play cornhole and stuff and like have games. But like,
scare
I
people out of
can't.
abortions.
Yeah, I don't really know exactly, but
which is
yeah,
kind of funny because by focusing on the harvest season, you're really taking the holiday back to its pagan roots.
yeah, yeah.
So on the name Angela Harris, Angela could be Angela from Sleepaway Camp, or could be Angela Bettis, who starred in May and The Woman and a bunch of other movies that I can't think of right now.
It was surprisingly good.
May is one of my favorite movies for sure. And then Danielle Harris could be where she gets the last name. She's also been in a ton of B movies that I can't think of right now. Oh, she was Jamie Lloyd in the Halloween series. During this segment about the Harvest organization, we have 5 protesters standing outside a building, and they each have signs. One says Satan delights in fright. One has a jack-o'-lantern with a strike through. One says Halloween is blasphemy. One says orange and black equals the flames of hell. And then my favorite one, masks won't hide your sins. And then
And
Angela
why is that your
Harris.
favorite one?
I don't know. It's just the most clever, I think. Like all of the rest are kind of basic, but that one's just like it's poetic. I don't know.
Hitting a little too close to home.
Uh, then at the end of the segment, Angela Harris gives us a beautiful death stare right into the camera, further foreshadowing that she will be a major villain in this story, which I didn't pick up on. Like there was so many clues about what the ending was going to be, but like I was really surprised when it turned out to be them. But then we cut to another ad break. We've got
Hmm.
Phil's Carpet Warehouse, which I think, like you were saying, that just felt like a very real commercial that I've probably already seen before, right? It wasn't. All the commercials
Yeah.
are new and made up, but it felt totally real. It felt exactly like a carpet commercial would.
Well, a lot of this is, I remember when I was watching this, I was thinking just how, because of the format, they must have done so much, like, because you'd have to set up every shoot, and like, I thought they were just doing all this from scratch, which just ungodly amounts of work for like, each 15-second bit, right?
Yeah, well,
And which is why I was convinced that they meant something. But then
there
it
were
turns out,
four or
yeah, it's all
five
found footage.
there were 4 or 5 directors that handled the ads, and then
Even so, it's a lot of work and planning to figure out like where all the ads are going to be and like setting up the shoots and all that. But like I read later that it's all based on found footage and stuff for the most part. So that really does kind of minimize all that work I was expecting they were doing if they're just using stuff that already existed in a lot
well,
of the
no, they
cases.
weren't. They recorded all of these. Like none of this is actual real footage.
Oh, okay. That is not what I saw on IMDb. But again, IMDb also potentially misleading because yeah, because there was the dialogue had to be new. So that's why I was okay.
Interesting. I don't know. I've never heard that they were using real footage
Maybe
of
it's a
real
blend of the
ads.
two.
Maybe. I don't know, but as far as I could
There
tell,
must have been
everything was new.
so much work that went into those ads.
I mean, kind of. Like, if you got 5 people doing them, and like I said, there's what 14 commercial breaks. Yeah, I guess that is kind of a lot of ads, but
Yeah, especially when like they're just fast forwarding for a bunch of them. It means it's
uh,
more time you got to fill.
so I just for some reason during this ad break is where I decided to put my list of the fake movies and fake TV shows. So let's go through those
Mhm.
real quick. Fake movies: Doggone It, Sarcophagus, and Monsters Invade the Wax Museum. And then for the fake TV shows, we got Straight A's, which is during the initial fast forward. Oak and Bear, Outlaws on the Range. Galaxy Pilot and the Laser Brigade. Chicago Lightning, Armed to Strike, and King of Castle Lane.
King of Castle Lane sounds like a cool show. I'm not gonna lie. Also, potentially a tie into Castle Rock if we're going to continue these connections. But I mean, like a lot of those are just allusions to other stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
the King
wouldn't be
of Castle
surprised.
Lane was the one where the uncle was visiting and he was an alcoholic and he drank the vanilla extract or whatever.
That one was. That's when I first started thinking of like. That's like straight out of an Adult Swim short.
Yeah, the guy even kind of looked like you know, Tim and or Eric. I don't know which one is which.
I honestly do not either. You said that these were like guest directors and stuff. Do you know who the what? Do you know who these guys were?
Parents Against Partying was written and directed by James Branscombe. Phil's Carpet Warehouse, written and directed by Sean Jones. King of Castle Lane,
Hmm.
written and directed by Scott McCubbin. Mouth by Asphyxia, written and directed by Lonnie Martin. Stay Sure Tampons, written and directed by Matthew Minter. Dandridge for Governor, written and directed by Andy Shobe. And The Shining Trapeze, written by Carly Cooper. So none of these are names that I recognize, but
No. I bet there's some connections though to other things we know.
maybe Chris Lamartin directed all the rest of the commercials that weren't in that list. But after we come back from this commercial break, we get the weather, which was very dramatic and warned of thunderstorms, a natural disaster on a night of unnatural disasters. We then have another break immediately after the forecast, and we get a wind up wildlife commercial, which is like a zoo books on videotape kind of thing.
Hmm.
And we get an ad for 1-900 Monster, a hotline where you can call to speak to zombies and serial killers and werewolves.
I missed that one.
Yeah, I remember that one. That was like one of the few ads that like didn't seem real to me. It was like, okay, that's a joke. Like,
Well, I
I
mean,
don't
so
know.
I wasn't alive during the 80s, so I can't speak to how widespread of a thing it was. But even in the like 90s and early 2000s, there were all those like
Mhm.
1-900 hotline numbers where you could call to be, entertained by people's voices. A lot of it,
Oh,
I
I
mean,
guess that's
obviously,
right. Yeah.
there was the sex
You
Yeah.
remember
lines.
the
Uh,
sex
Right.
lines? There was the fan lines. There was that Simpsons episode that parodied them,
yeah,
where
there was.
Lisa was addicted to the boy band or whatever.
Yeah, one real example that I have found was there was a line where you could call to talk to Corey Feldman and Corey Haim, which I
Right,
don't.
that's the one that the Simpsons was parodying.
Uh, yeah, I don't know how that worked. Like maybe they had like what's the word?
Impersonators?
Impersonators. Yeah, because I'm sure
I
those
would not
guys
be
were busy.
shocked.
But after we come back from that commercial break, we finally get into the Halloween special itself. Frank Stewart's standing on the lawn of the house, and he introduces everything, and he begins to introduce Veronica, the producer that he's working with, and she jumps out of the van with a chainsaw and scares him.
Right? Which
When
again, classic.
I don't know, it's kind of cheesy looking back on it because she's wearing just her regular work clothes. It's not very convincing of a costume, but I don't know. She's got like a mask on, and when she does the chainsaw and she turns it off, immediately Frank goes, "Oh, very cute." Like there is no pause. It sounds so fucking fake
Mm-hmm.
because Frank is a newscaster. He's not an actor,
Right.
you know. Um,
Yeah, that came off really well, like throughout this entire thing, where he was just sort of he was doing a good job of acting like a bad actor.
so then after the chainsaw prank and after a little bit more introduction, as Frank is talking, he's interrupted by a cultist on the lawn who runs towards the microphone and yells, "This is blasphemy!" and then gets tackled and escorted off the premises. And I went frame by frame during this segment, and I was hoping maybe I could see like the other cultist running into the house while everyone was distracted. No, nothing like that.
Are they cultists or just Christians? Like
Well,
in the
they're harvest members, dude. They're more than just regular Christians. They're
No,
they're
I know, and I didn't mean necessarily like that's too broad a term. Pente not Pentecostal. Doesn't matter.
fundamentalists.
Moving on. Yeah, fundamentalist. We'll go with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna refer to them as a cult.
Yeah, fair
Are they
enough.
cult?
I actually knew a girl growing up, and her mom was basically kind of along those lines, and she actually locked her. This girl I knew, she actually got locked in the closet by her mom on Halloween, like because of like demons are gonna get her or something like that.
Oh
That's
shit.
like,
Real Carrie move.
yeah, yeah, basically, and she ended up being kind of like a Carrie type of girl. Like she was so awkward and weird. Yeah. So that shit can happen.
Oh, I believe it. I
It
mean,
does.
I've run into enough people that were very invested in their beliefs.
So then we go to another commercial break. I didn't make any notes about this one, I don't think specifically, but more commercials. We come back, and Frank Stewart, once again on the lawn, apologizes for what just happened with the party crasher. He says anything goes on live TV, and one of the guys in the background goes, "Yeah!" And Frank's just like, "Okay."
I I appreciate that guy's energy.
So then he gets to asking everyone if they know what happened here, which I think is one of the funniest parts of the movie. He asks the bunny man behind him, "What do you know what happened here?" And he says, "Some people got killed. Their son went haywire," I think is the line. Frank says that's
Uh-huh.
actually pretty accurate. And he goes around and asks everyone. One of the people says it was very gory and there was blood and guts everywhere. She seems very excited by that.
Well, yeah, I mean, wouldn't you? That's why all of those people are there.
And then that was where you mentioned earlier. They ask a Dracula if he knows what happened here, and he's like, "Somebody died in this house." I have no
Yeah, he
idea.
looks all scared. He's like, yeah,
Like, I'm
he's
just
just
here because,
there.
like, there was a crowd. I
Yeah,
wanted to
he's
be
just
part of the
tagging
group.
along.
And then he says, "For the actual gruesome facts, watch this." And they play a pre-recorded segment about the spirit board murders that are the focus of the story. Paul and Linda Weber were murdered by their son Donald in the spirit board murders. He found a spirit board in the attic shortly after moving into the house, so I guess it was left there from the previous owners. It happened in September 1967, and the spirits told him to commit crimes and ultimately to murder his parents. He called the cops on himself, and he was executed in 1981. So the working theory for the investigation is that it's his spirit that is haunting the house that everyone has
Hmm.
seen. We get an interview with a cop who says that he's seen a woman floating and then her head fell off. All the other cops told him, "We've all seen this and we don't talk about it." So then, after the explanation plays, Frank asks all of his audience if they believe in ghosts. One of them says he knows about Casper the Friendly Ghost, and Frank says, "You know that was fake, right? Don't mean to burst your bubble." He asks a devil girl if she believes in ghosts, and she says, "I believe in happy ghosts, like spirits of loved ones that watch over you." To which Frank is also quite skeptical.
Hmm.
And then finally, he asks a gorilla if he believes in ghosts, and he responds like a gorilla would. Frank says, "I'll take that as a yes." Uh, and then we cut to another commercial break that I don't have any notes about. When we come back, we meet Lewis and Claire Berger and their cat Shadow, who is the third member of their team and probably the most actually psychic one of all of them.
Or just knew when to get the hell out, which I guess is a psychic power.
Yeah, they say, like, he's terrified, and Frank's like, "We haven't even gone in the house yet." And Lewis is like, "That's why he's clairvoyant. He can see the future."
But
Um,
also, it's a cat, man. They're known to be skittish. Taking your cat places?
yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, some cats definitely love to go places, but this one does seem a bit of a scaredy cat, I dare say.
Mm-hmm. You could say.
Claire says that she can see people's auras, and she could since she was a small child. And Frank asks, "Do you see an aura on me?" She says, "Yes." He says, "Is it a good aura?" And she says, "I see an aura."
Yeah, that was my biggest laugh right there.
And then he asks, "Has anyone ever called you Claire the Clairvoyant?" And she says, "No."
Like, this was the funniest part of the movie for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm broken.
No, it was hilarious. The acting was perfect. One thing that I did cringe at was they had to get in the pretty pussy joke.
Of
Um,
course, obviously. It was the 80s.
So then we get another commercial break, and on this one I had noted that there's a 1-900-869 Fate, the Fate Talk Fortune hotline, which of course is relevant since we just met the psychics in the movie.
It's true. And again, I started thinking like, ah, clearly it's all connected. Then I started taking notes of all the phone numbers to see if there was any connection or if they just started having the same phone number every time and it led to something else. And nah, nothing. Just distractions.
Yeah. We get a commercial from an oil company. Later on, there's another commercial from the Clean Earth Society, and I think they both use the same stock footage of like a waterfall.
I noticed that. That was kind of funny.
So then we come back from that commercial break and we're finally entering the house. The audience has been sent home, and Frank asks Claire what she feels. She says it'll take a minute, and he's like, "We don't got a minute. Give me your initial impressions."
Right. We got footage to burn.
And she says her initial impressions. She very awkwardly says something like, there's deep darkness here. It's very bitter, very angry. Like she didn't have anything prepared. She's trying to make shit up on the spot, and she repeats herself quite a bit. She says that the presence she feels is not Donald or his parents. She says it's pure evil. My theory at this point is that maybe she's sensing the cultist's energy. Maybe they're already hiding in the house. Maybe they snuck in while the guy was crashing the lawn. I don't know. That's what I was checking for, but I didn't find anything.
That it could also just be as simple as her vamping for the camera, too. I mean, that's about as generic a statement as you can get.
That's true. I do get the sense that the burgers actually believe in their bullshit. I don't
I
have
did
anything.
too.
I don't necessarily have any proof of that, but it seems like they believe they're psychics.
Well, at the
Did you?
very least, unlike the priest, they had a reputation beyond this segment, right? Like in World. Like they'd written a series of books or something, right?
Yeah, they put out an album to promote the movie. WNUF TV 28 presents Frank Stewart Investigates Halloween. I think they actually released it on vinyl too, but I downloaded it from Bandcamp. The first half of it was Frank Stewart doing investigations about local urban legends. The second
I
half
found your
was
links.
Lewis and Claire Berger releasing an album about their investigations about various ghosts and supernatural occurrences.
But these two were definitely a parody of the guys that were doing like the Amityville Horror House, right? I'm
Ed
forgetting
and
the name.
Lorraine Warren.
Those two, yes. Which they did clearly believe their own bullshit, but they were also doing their best
To make
you
shit up
know,
and make it more dramatic.
to keep the cash flowing. Yeah.
After Claire gives her initial impressions, then the cat Shadow runs upstairs. He's frightened. The burgers chase after them. Frank is left alone, so he looks at the camera and he introduces Father Matheson.
Oh, this guy is great. I liked him a lot. I don't know how much you want to get into Matheson's whole deal now, but I will say that I do appreciate the first impression of
Yeah,
again, just a real awkward guy that you could tell very clearly that he wasn't sure what he was supposed to be doing. Probably never been on live TV before. But at the same time, it was just a really good moment for the our lead to just continue to be an asshole to somebody else, but also kind of build out an actual relationship between these two. I don't know how much I want to get into about that now, but
well, I was going to say, I don't think we should worry too much about spoiling the rest of the movie because I would just hope that whoever's watching this has already seen the movie. But
okay. Well, I think this is probably the closest thing that this movie has to an arc in the development between these two characters, the priest and the news anchor, are there's clearly one's trying to get something out of the other. The other doesn't want to admit that he has no idea what the hell he's doing because he's not actually a priest.
right,
And the whole, oh God, is this real? Clearly it is. I don't think this is, but I'm not a priest, so if it is real, then I'm way out of my depth. There was
exactly.
just a lot going on. This was the most movie this movie got.
I do think, like, even if he was a real priest, even if we took him at his word, he did say that he has never performed an exorcism before,
Oh,
and
completely.
maybe he just thinks
Like,
he's not priest enough to tame the
right,
demons.
like the typical, like the small town priest who's, not like those big city priests who have to deal with exorcisms like 12 times a week. He's just barely had to deal with a traffic ticket,
Right.
confession, or whatever. So yeah, no, it started with that big energy, and then just the reveal that he was just an actor that the news crew paid just kind of led this whole pathos to it because like he's just like, what the fuck do you want from me, man? I'm not even supposed to be here, sort of
Yeah.
energy, and then just
That's
kind
the sort
of
of
brought out
energy
the
he had.
cruelty in the character.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, like for some reason, he kind of put off a vibe like he was guilty of something, like he was trying to hide something, and then you could just tell he was just nervous and just an actor at the end. But it was weird. Like
Yeah,
for a while,
which
like, why is he
he
acting
was
this
trying
way?
to hide something. He
Yeah,
very much was
yeah,
trying to hide something. He was trying to pretend to be a priest.
yeah. That's true. That's true.
Yeah, so he didn't want to go into too much detail about the exorcism because he knew that it would expose him as a fake in case anyone watching happened to be a real exorcist.
And if
But
it turns
also,
out that there was a demon about, that means he'd be a target if the demon thought he was a holy man.
exactly, he would just piss him off.
Yeah, he really just had no win there.
So then, after the introduction of Father Matheson, we have another commercial break. We hear about Mr. Chip's Computer Learning Center, 857 Kaufman Avenue. Kaufman, of course, being Lloyd Kaufman, the head of Trauma Entertainment. Then we talk about the Broadcast Institute for Television and Radio, BITR, or BITR, I guess, BITR, which is kind of relevant because. Wait, did I skip over something?
I don't know. We were talking about the priest, and then
Okay, I skipped over something. At some point, we come back on the burgers, and they have set up this recording equipment, right? And they're doing what's called EVP, or electronic voice phenomena. They ask a question and they record it, and they can only hear the ghost answer when they play it back.
right.
I think they ask, "Is there anyone here?" Something like that, something very basic, and the ghost just says, "Leave." And there's like this real frantic energy to Lewis here where he's like, did you hear it? Did you hear the voice? Like, he's very excited, and he really wants to impress upon Frank that this is real, even though it's clearly not. It's pre-recorded, I'm sure. At some point, we come back, and they're saying, after the EVP recording, they say, why don't we go downstairs? They're heading towards the basement, I think, which is where the bodies of the Webbers were found.
Yeah, like he's really trying to. Well, he's trying to get his footage for his TV special, like desperately.
Yeah, he's talking to Claire, and he's really trying to get her because she's the one who's being the most dramatic about everything. She's like, "There's evil in this house. We're not safe," and they're
Hmm.
doing their thing, and they hear a loud thump, a noise from upstairs. So they don't quite make it to the basement. They go back upstairs, and we see that the recording equipment has been destroyed. It's shattered into tiny pieces, which the Burgers are very upset about. One of them says, "We had a
Justifiably.
contract. We had a contract, Frank."
Yeah,
Um,
that shit was expensive back then too, so justifiably so. And I imagine that what like this is all implying, like similar to with the priest, the actor playing the priest, is that there was some setup involved that they had like let's say jump scares and stuff planned in case the live show turned out not to be very interesting. Which is
right,
why I'm guessing that there was probably originally someone set up in the bed in the like they were going to make a show, right? And there
right.
was a script. The script has clearly gone off the rails at this point, and now everyone's anxious. But the show must go on.
So I don't get the impression that they did have people in the house already. For one thing, because if they did, then those people either died or they would have seen the cultists sneaking in. But just, and I mean, I'm taking this at face value when maybe I shouldn't, but like they keep saying repeatedly, like there's no one in the house. We don't have anyone, you know. Uh,
Well, that's exactly what they would say now, wouldn't it?
I suppose so. Yeah. But Frank does seem to be legitimately kind of surprised by
Mhm.
these developments. And as the Burgers are yelling at him about their equipment, he very quickly, cuts to commercial because he doesn't want the audience to hear whatever the fuck they're about to say about their shit and their contract
Right?
and what they agreed upon. And during this ad break, we get "Playing with Drugs is Playing with Death" from Parents Against Partying. That's a commercial where they're playing spin the bottle, but there's a bunch of drugs around the circle.
That was great. I liked that one too. Standout commercial.
Then we have Avalon Beach Rentals, who are trying to make money during the off season, saying like, "Hey, come to the beach for your Halloween or Thanksgiving celebrations." I imagine being on the beach when it's raining. I mean, I've been on a beach while it was raining, but it's not the best. And then we get an ad for The Quarry, their local rock and roll station. "All the rock you'll ever need." I think that's a great pun. They say some TVs only go up to M, ours goes up to Q, which of course is a Spinal Tap reference, but maybe also a joke about MTV, because I didn't get that, like some TVs only go up to M. Now,
Yeah, I
call
don't
me
know what that
crazy,
meant either.
but all my TVs have always used numbers.
Right?
And then we fast forward through another commercial, and then we come back to another one that's also about music. Board and Wax presents "Feel the Steel."
Yeah,
Now, Board and Wax again, like sounds like a real company, right? Like I'm pretty sure there
it
was
does. Yes.
there was some similar company that made a bunch of cheap CDs like this, compilation CDs, but I don't remember what it was called. Um, but the songs listed in the commercial, we have Jackson and their song "Ours is the Night to Take," Dust Devils with their song "Two Kinds of Love," parentheses, "Turn Around," Pyro Fire with their song "Couple Skate," Carburetor, that's carburetor with a K, "Pumping the Brakes on
Hmm.
You." I assume that all of their songs are car themed.
I that would fit the team. Yes.
Then we have Defcon, also with a K, with their song "Beasts of Passion." We have Northern Aggression with their song "Confederate Dollars." Epistle Whip with their song "Love is a Bloody Axe." No, sorry, "Love is Bloody Axe." There's no A in there. Parentheses, Megan. We have Cannibal, Kannabyl, with their song "Tuxedo Shark," which I'm sure is a movie that exists. Wanted with their song Heaven is Afraid, and Rotor, Rotor as an acronym, with their song Poisoned Blood. A lot of creativity in these little details that are on the screen for half a second.
Yeah,
Oh man,
these
it's
are all
clearly
things
not
I did not
hidden.
notice at the
Nor did
time.
I.
So then we come back from that ad break and we're at the live call-in seance that has been teased. They're taking phone calls from their audience to ask through Claire of the spirits in the house. The first call, unscreened, yeah. The first call is Iron Maiden rules, White Lion sucks. The second call is a woman asking them to contact her dead grandmother and call her a bitch, which is pretty funny. I like that. And then the priest, Father Matheson, he asks Claire, do you know who these spirits are and do you know what they want? And she says, they're very old spirits. They want revenge. They want payback. They feel deeply wronged. And so, trying to fit this into my fan theory that she's sensing the energy of the cult members, I'm thinking, well, maybe they want revenge for how their society has been corrupted by the dark forces of Halloween or whatever, you know? Either
I don't
that
know.
or,
I just still think she's vamping.
yeah, maybe she just pulled it out of her ass, but, you know.
Because it really is the most generic thing you could say.
Then there's a third anonymous call. They say this lady wants to remain anonymous, and we're going to grant her that request. She comes on and she says, "This is blasphemy. You're all going to burn in the fiery pits of hell." Which Claire looks really shocked and offended by. That was the biggest jump scare in the movie too, because it was a relatively quiet scene, and then she just fucking screams into the phone. And then Frank tries to ask her, like, could it be the spirits of Paul and Linda Weber that want revenge for their deaths, right? And she's like, I don't know. I can't get a sense. And her husband comes in and says, it's not that simple. It's organic. It comes in spurts. And she
Mm-hmm.
says, there's too much energy. They're conflicting with one another. Now, that obviously could just refer to the fact that there's like 4 or 5 people in that room who all have auras. Or
Right.
it
And
could be because there's multiple evil entities in the house, the cultists. I don't know. I assume they're like hiding out in the closets, or maybe they're already in the basement. I'm not quite sure of how they're moving through the house undetected. After all that goes down, Frank has one last little remark about, do the ghosts have any stock tips or lotto numbers? And she's like, this is not a joke. And he's like, I'm not suggesting this is a joke. I'm just trying to find out. Their arguing gets interrupted when Shadow screams from upstairs or downstairs or wherever the fuck. And we cut to a commercial break. And during this one, we get Cloverland Shooting Range, 187 Valley View Pike. Now, 187 is the California Penal Code that defines the crime of murder. The whole commercial is very tongue-in-cheek, kind of poking fun
mm-hmm.
at the gun culture in America. Their tagline is, turns average Joes like you into He-Man action stars and pistol-packing mamas.
Pistol packing mamas hit especially hard because I've been playing a lot of Fallout lately.
Then we get another anti-drug commercial, Stop Drugs, Save Your Children. They basically say that everything that's wrong in the world is the fault of drugs. But this is not Parents Against Partying. This is a commercial by Committee to End Drugs. There are 2 anti-drug organizations apparently in Riverhill Township.
Reasonable.
So then we cut back from the commercial. We're back in the house. The cameraman runs in and we see the cat is dead. The cat has been torn to shreds. And
Yeah, that was harsh.
it was harsh. Definitely the bad vibes moment of the movie, which, it's to be expected a little bit. Like,
Well, someone's got to die eventually. That's the genre.
true. Yeah, this is the first actual death, I guess, if you don't count the murders talked about in the news segments.
Which I do not, because that's all hearsay. We want
Yeah.
blood on the screen.
very distraught burgers are crying and yelling, and Lewis says, "Show it, show the cat, show the people at home what you have done." He shows it. He zooms down and shows the cat, and Frank's like, "No, don't show it, for God's sake. Come back on me." And then after that, we cut to a replay of the tooth decay segment from earlier, which I think that, that's just what the studio did in panic because they don't want to be showing this scene where everyone's very upset and there's a dead cat on the floor. That was the moment I was talking about earlier where I'm like, I'm just still in shock from seeing this cat on the floor. And while I'm processing those emotions, we've got this very mundane, tooth decay segment. And I think the unseen viewer fast forwards through the tooth decay bit, and then we go back to an ad break.
The unseen viewer. Is there anything to that? Because there's a part where it kind of adds another layer to the immersion because you're watching someone else watch the film, essentially.
Yeah, it's a very, it's a fourth wall
weird
break
mechanic. Yeah. And I'm not really sure, does it go anywhere that I just missed, or is it just kind of an element?
I don't think so. I think it's mostly there to add to the vibe and also to make you not have to watch the same commercial 5 times, They mostly fast forward through stuff that we've already seen or stuff that, is kind of boring.
Yeah, fair enough. It is definitely like the phone numbers. It was just one of those other trails I started going down that didn't really seem to go anywhere, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I was missing something somewhere.
After we get through the tooth decay bit, we come back to another ad break. We've got Good Standings Bar and Grill, 201 Cinder Lane, just past the bowling alley. They're famous for their chili cheeseburgers, and this week's local talent, they have like an open mic night kind of thing. They will be featuring Beth Hornberry, Paper Trail, and Closed for Repairs. Now, I think that last name is very deep because when we are damaged and we need emotional repairs, we often close ourselves off from the world. I think that's what that means, right? That's the joke of that name, or the idea behind a band called Closed for Repairs.
Okay. I honestly, I'm kind of impressed that they paid for airtime to advertise their local talent.
Then we get Frumke's new Autumnberry premium wine cooler. I don't have a whole lot to say about this commercial. It was just pretty funny. There's a vampire guy and he's drinking wine coolers.
Again, very of its time.
Can anybody tell me what an autumnberry tastes like, though? I've never heard of autumnberries.
I'm pretty sure it's fake.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it's like a dino berry. I mean,
yeah,
complete bullshit. I'm doing a quick Google just in case. Like Galactic Cooler.
We get an ad for the Chestertown Mall, which is, again, kind of boring. I didn't have a whole lot to say about this, except they're advertising that you can come in this weekend to meet Zachary Bannon from the hit show Galaxy Pilot, which we saw a commercial for earlier in the movie. Which is nice.
I was wrong. Autumn berries are a thing.
Okay, cool.
Wow.
They, I don't know what they are. They exist.
Okay.
It's going to require more research to give you anything else other than that.
That's fair. I just thought it was a funny name, but so we come back from this commercial break, and Frank Stewart assures us this is not a prank. It's not staged. The grisly evidence of the paranormal is real. That's the trailer line.
Right.
He says the burgers have left because they're so upset, justifiably so. And he asks Father Matheson, is this the work of the devil? And he's just kind of like, I don't know, could be, it's possible. He's very nervous about it. He doesn't want to say anything concretely, either because he doesn't know or because he doesn't want to give away his fraud. And he's also just kind of in shock, because he just saw a fucking cat die.
Right. It's kind of traumatic.
Yeah, so he's staring off into the distance, and Frank tells us that satanic worship has been on the rise in the area lately, and they air a segment from the news about that. During this Satanic Panic segment, they interview a woman named Mary Ellen Dakota. Her last name comes from David Dakota, director of countless B movies full of barely legal shirtless men. I watched one of them the other day. Bigfoot versus DB Cooper.
Okay. That
Anyway,
does explain why no one's seen him again.
Terrible movie. Anyway, yeah, I think that's where that last name comes from. I don't know about Mary Ellen. That might be a reference to something, but if it is, it's not hitting me. One of the satanic graffitis that they show says Hail Satan, which is classic. I think that joke was a lot funnier in the 80s. And then we talk about a couple cases of satanic worship that have actually been prosecuted. Gladys Polonia sacrificed 19 cats in order to get closer to the Dark Lord. The last name Polonia is a reference to Mark Polonia, the guy who makes all those shitty shark movies like Sharkula, Ouija Shark, I think. Maybe not Ouija Shark, actually. That might be someone else.
You know better than we would. You went kind of off the rails on Shark Week.
Hey, man. It's part of our fucking... it's part of our genre. It's part of our culture. But the guy's made hundreds of shitty shark movies and other B movies. I think his first one was called Feeders. It's not a shark movie at all, I don't think. But I haven't been able to track it down just yet.
Feeders sounds interesting. Like, I kind of hope that's not about sharks because there's so many interesting possibilities. Like, you could do like parasitic worms or piranhas or I don't know. Feeders is just such a fun word.
Yeah. So
there was a Mary Ellen Wilson who was an American victim of child abuse that led to the creation of the New York Society for the Prevention of Cruelty of Children, which, I mean, there's a tangential collection there potentially.
So speaking of the Satanic Panic, most of that was made up. Most of it was a witch hunt and hysteria, but I actually have heard, and I don't have details on this, but I'll try to find the video that I watched. But there was apparently like one actual satanic cult that was running like a childcare center, right? And they turned out to be like kind of a front for the CIA, or like they were basically a smokescreen that like the CIA would not do anything about them, and then like if they needed an explanation for something, they'd be like, "Oh, well, there's this cult."
That so tracks like everything else that was happening with the CIA at the time. Like, we will become the problem to stamp out the problem.
Yeah. So after the Satanic Panic segment, though, we come back to Frank, and he's asking, begging, pleading, telling the priest, "Will you perform the exorcism?" And he's trying his damnedest to worm out of it. He does not.
Because again, he's an actor.
Yeah.
What does he want from him?
And he keeps saying, like, the church rarely grants such requests. You know, exorcisms have to be approved. I've never done one before. Maybe this isn't the best night for an exorcism. But Frank is very firm that he wants this done. He says there are clearly evil spirits in the house. We're all in danger. We got to protect ourselves. So finally, the guy agrees. And we go to another commercial break. We have a commercial for Lewis and Claire Berger's new book, Abomination, The Devil in Akron. Remember, have you book commercials? I don't think I've ever seen a book commercial.
I used to hear like radio commercials for books, like for like whenever a Tom Clancy book came out or something. There was always a commercial between, I don't know, whatever I was listening to on talk radio at the time.
The only like ad I've seen for a book was Mr. Be Gone by Clive Barker, and I saw the ad on MySpace. So yeah, we then have a commercial for the strip club, The Shining Trapeze, which of course is a reference to H.P. Lovecraft's The Shining Trapezohedron, which is an item from his story, The Haunter of the Dark. I had to look a lot of that up this morning.
Good book.
Their River Hills Premier Gentlemen's Club, 2944 Kerwin Road. Don't know if Kerwin is a reference to anything, but it sounds creepy.
Honestly, it sounds like another Stephen King character.
Right off I-95, Saturday eggs and legs special, breakfast buffet and half price lap dances.
So gross. Like, damn. Get your lap. The,
Spam
there's
and
so many
ham.
things with that. So many things with that.
And then we get an advertisement for the Lifeline Suicide Prevention Hotline. So that's our third hotline, although this one feels a little different, right? This is more of a public service than a 900 number. But
You can see why I was like writing down phone numbers. There was a
yeah.
lot of them,
Well, and I
which I
mean,
mean, I
like,
guess
a
that was
lot
the
of them,
time.
yeah. A lot of them do, or were like kind of puns. Like this one is 1-800 We Hear You. Like, not really a pun, but
Mhm.
like, you know,
Yeah, like the
800 and
cute
900
novelty phone
numbers.
numbers at the time.
Right.
Which again, though, that's just what people did back then, though. Like I remember those, Legends of Rock compilations. Buy now, first disc is free, or pay only a penny or something.
Yeah. They say not all of life's problems have the same right answer, but they all have the same wrong one. Let a
Which
stranger
is
be a
drugs.
friend is their slogan. So then after that, we come back to the exorcism finally ready to be performed. And he
Mhm.
starts saying the Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven. And then there's a noise from upstairs. And so I think they're in the basement now, right? They're down in the
Yes.
basement where the bodies were found. I was confused about even that up until the last time I watched it. I thought they were like upstairs and trying to get into the attic or something, but
Well, like a lot of the house, it is an empty house, so a lot of them just the rooms all kind of look the same. So I
yeah.
can't blame you for that.
So Frank goes, "Hello, is there somebody up there?" He goes up to try to check, but the door's locked. They're locked in the basement. And he's trying to get it open and he's yelling at the priest. And we cut to a commercial break. Very short commercial break, only one commercial. Dr. Bloodwrench, he's a horror host, and he's hosting the
Hmm.
movie Monsters Invade the Wax Museum. And the only note I have about this is there's one headstone in the visible that you can read, and it says Dix, or Dix if you're French. Dix. So then we cut back to Veronica, the producer, out in the van, and she says she's going to send in another cameraman. They send in this guy named Connor, and he's sniffling like crazy. I don't know if it's just because he's scared or if he's been doing cocaine, but he sniffles the whole
I'm
time
going
he's on
yes.
screen. Yeah.
Definitely gonna go with yes.
So after Connor is hit with something, with an axe, we see like one of the cultists wearing like flannel attack him with the axe. It kind of reminds me of The Shining, where they kill Halloran or whatever.
Hmm.
And Veronica's saying like, "Get out of the house." There's this is serious. We're calling the police. And Frank's like, "I'd love to get out of the house, but the fucking door's locked." And he says, "Father, perform the exorcism now." And that's when he finally reveals, "I'm not a priest. I'm an actor." And Frank's like, "Shut up. Shut your mouth, you ungrateful little shit." Because he's given away the whole game now. Even though like their lives are in danger, he still cares more about the ratings,
Well, not just the ratings, but like,
the
well,
reputation.
it's ego. Like he's realized at that point he's definitely bitten off more than he chewed, so he's trying to maintain the illusion of control. So if he has a priest there, the priest can perform the exorcism. If everything fixes itself, he wins, right? If the guy admits to not being a priest, then he's lost his trump card,
Mm.
and with all the power he could potentially have in this situation.
So Veronica says, "We're gonna cut to commercial, Frank," and he's like, "Wait a minute, wait a minute." The door is open. The door just opens on its own. Frank goes upstairs and he's immediately hit with an axe or something. He's delivered blunt force trauma and he falls over and you see a shot of the microphone on the ground, which I thought was beautiful cinematography. It's pretty simple stuff, but I just thought it was very effective.
Got the job done.
And then we don't cut to commercial. We cut to a technical difficulty screen, which is on for a few seconds and I think really adds to the immersion. But that's all this movie is immersion. And then we finally cut back and we see the cultists with Frank Stewart tied up in the corner, and they say, well, "This is our show now. We brought all your guests, and we see the dead bodies of Lewis and Claire." And I don't know if the priest is there, but there are
I'd be
several dead
shocked if he
bodies,
wasn't.
and the lady from earlier, Angela Harris, she's like, I told you, Mr. Stewart, you are the tool of the devil. We're in control now. And the guy who's holding the camera, he gets a little too excited and he pans over, and she's like, "Don't get my face." Even though, like, her voice is pretty distinct. We all heard her earlier on the
Right.
news. But yeah, they cut out his tongue and they laugh and they say, "From everyone at WNUF TV 28, we wish you a happy Halloween." And it cuts to black, and then there's static. And then we finally cut back to 5 days later, another beginning of a newscast. The news anchors are there. They're completely somber. They're sad. Their colleague is missing. They say, we think that the events of that night were a hoax, but it's been 5 days and we've got no clues and no one's laughing. And then the female news anchor, who I really regret not writing her name down, she says, "Christmas is just around the corner and local food drives," and then it fades out.
Yeah, just the immediate back to business mask.
And I really had my fingers crossed. There was 9 years between the first movie and the second movie, and I was hoping the whole time, come on, WNF Christmas special. I really wanted there to be a Christmas version of this movie. There is not. All we got was a trailer for the previous year's Christmas special featuring Frank Stewart, which was a cute little Easter egg, but I was hoping they would make a movie out of it. They didn't. They ended up making another Halloween movie, which is what we'll be watching in a few minutes.
Yeah, it seems like the second one is a lot lesser known.
Yeah, the first one was a big event kind of thing. And I think it's because of the way they marketed it as a lost media kind of thing. It was a modern day Blair Witch. For me at least, it was the one that I kind of fell for at first,